Welcome to another virtual author chat at the Poison Pen Bookstore. I'm John Charles, and today the Poison Pen is delighted to have with us as our special guest author, Michelle Hoffman, whose new book, The Second Ending, was just published this summer. Before we begin, I'd like to let those listening in know the Poison Pen does have copies of The Second Ending, and we would be happy to hold one for you or put one in the mail. Just give us a call at the Poison Pen or go online to the bookstore. Now I would like to welcome author Michelle Hoffman.
Thank you for having me. It's a
Thank you
pleasure.
thank you for joining us. Um, Even after the number of years that I've spent reading, there's always kind of a special delight when you discover a new author who has such a distinctive voice and who all you want to do is read the book. And that's what happened with me with The Second Ending.
Oh,
But before we get into the book, I'm always fascinated by how an author got to where they're at. So what can you tell us about Michelle before the publication of your first book?
well, I'm a big reader, so all through my life I've been a really big reader. That's even before I started writing. But I was really into writing short stories. I wanted to be a poet. Um, and I eventually got into journalism, where I wrote for the Arizona Republic for many years, about 12 or 13 years. I was a drama critic and
Oh,
A&E writer. And I interviewed Stephen Cannell at the Poison Pen
oh,
several times. Um, and then when the newspaper industry it started to thin out, um, I decided that I was going to get into creative writing, writing some short stories. And then when my kids left home, I thought it was time to take a swing at the novel. So I had practice developing my voice for many years. Um, a lot of theater reviews, you can be creative and have a lot of voice. And I think that's where that kind of developed. It wasn't a sudden thing. But yeah, so I started writing the novel, and it I very much enjoyed getting up in the morning and sitting at my desk for a couple hours, and I got a lot of pleasure in that. It was very satisfying.
what was the path to publication like for you? Were you an overnight success? Did it require multiple submissions?
Yeah, so I early on, back in the days when a lot of agents were on Twitter, I created a Twitter account and I followed a lot of agents and studied, a lot of times, which I thought was very helpful. I'm not sure if anyone's doing it anymore, but under the hashtag 10 queries, an agent will go through her query box, her, and live streaming it and say, okay, this is why I passed on this one. And this is why I put this one, pick this one from the slush. So I looked at that very carefully. And it wasn't as smooth, though. I mean, I did send out probably, I don't know, 30 submissions. 10 requested it. And then there were some rejections in there. But I do think when an agent passes on your work, you really have to believe it's not your writing. And that's hard. But if you study interviews with them, the book isn't for them because they don't have the vision for it. And it's important to believe in yourself and say, well, I do think I wrote something that is publishable, so I'm going to keep trying. And I know I'm making that sound real easy, but there were days when I put my head down on my desk because the more I sent it out, the more I wanted this, the more I was sure this is what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to write books. I'd done journalism. Short stories are fun, but there's even more rejection in that, I think, trying to get a story in a literary magazine, but I
Oh,
did manage to do it once or twice. So
that's great.
yeah.
That's really fascinating, your insight into Twitter and agents and things like that, because you're right. A lot of aspiring writers do lose hope if they're don't immediately find an agent. And a lot of times it's timing and you have similar tastes, I guess. You finding an agent is like matchmaking. You kind of have to find the perfect one. I guess if you're rejected by 400 agents, then you might want to look at your
Yeah.
work again. But if you need to find the right one, it can take time. So you did get the second ending published and it just came out this summer. What can you tell those listening in who are not familiar with it about the book?
Okay, so the second ending is about a former piano prodigy. She's a middle-aged housewife and she's having a midlife crisis. And she had her childhood was kind of a circus, and she kind of went that same path that child stars go on, where they're taken advantage of, and they burn out by the time they're 12, and they're not so cute anymore. They're not such a novelty. So Prudence, our protagonist, she goes into jingle writing, and she makes a good amount of money writing these commercial jingles. She meets her husband, Stuart. They get married, and they're a very compatible couple, and they have 2 daughters. And things are okay for a while, raising the daughters, until the daughters leave and for college, and Prudence doesn't know what to do with herself. And she kind of wants to revise that dream, prove herself a true artist, not just a circus act. So that's the book. She kind of gets back into, and it's a journey of self-acceptance and not so much discovery, but claiming your talent. And I write in the book that I think everybody is good at something, and everybody has a dream, but we tend to abandon our dreams when we get to middle age. We think it's too late now, and I don't think it is. And so Prudence sort of goes on this journey to prove herself, and she decides to compete in an American Idol type competition show that's a dueling pianos show. And her and her competitor, Alexei Petrov, as the novel goes on, the stakes get higher, where each of them absolutely has to win this contest, which happens at the end of the book.
It's fascinating because in some ways Alexi is almost like Prudence in her early years because he's wants to do something, but he's being pushed into another direction. And um, you kind of hope that he has a similar outcome to Prudence's.
Yeah, Alexei, when I started writing the book, he was going to be the antagonist.
Hmm.
And then I started to feel sorry for him. he had his own problems. And so I think, the book, you're kind of rooting for both of them to win, because I think we see ourselves in both of them. So yeah, Alexei started out to be the antagonist.
Well, that's interesting. If I understand correctly, there were two kind of interesting sources of inspiration for your book. One was the novel of Mice and Men, and the other was a song from a musical, The Man of La Mancha.
Yeah. So when I was writing for the Republic back in 2008, the playwright Dale Wasserman lived in Paradise Valley, as you know, and he was the playwright for Man of La Mancha, and I was approached to interview him, and I at his Paradise Valley home, and I was absolutely thrilled to do that. And there's a song in Man of La Mancha called The Impossible Dream. So throughout my interview with him, and he was 94, Dale Wasserman was 94, and a wonderful, engaging, humble, fascinating. At 94, he was just, he was wonderful. And so I asked him, I said, what is this song really about, The Impossible Dream? And he kind of rolled his eyes, because back in the 60s and the 70s, that was like on the pop charts, I think.
Yeah.
And it was used in coffee commercials and any way you could exploit the song. And it's a great tune. But he said everybody gets it wrong. Impossible is just what it means. The goal is not attainable. It's the drive. It engenders the person dreaming the dream. So every day is living for this dream. And I thought that the ranchers, the ranch hands in Of Mice and Men perfectly embodied that concept, because you have them, these two guys have no family, they have no money, no home, nothing. It's just the two of them. And they get out of bed and they just have this nomadic existence going from ranch to ranch. They're there for a few weeks or a month and they get paid, and then they blow it all and they start all over again. So it's a really bleak existence, happens in the Great Depression. And what gets them out of bed every day doing it over and over again? It's because they have this dream. And they talk about it all through the novel, of getting a little piece of land one day, saving up money, getting a little piece of land and raising some chickens and growing some crops. And all Lenny wants to do is tend the rabbits. That's his dream. And he asks George about it all the time. And you know it's never going to happen, but it gets them up and out of bed every day. And you know, it's there's something really working towards that. You know, it's not going to happen. So when I was writing the book, I mean, the odds of getting it published were, you know, against me, but I loved getting up every day and working on it. And there's such a satisfaction in doing that, you know, for 2 hours every morning before my house got up, and I would write. And then when the writing went well, I didn't care what happened the rest of the day. If the car broke down, if the roof is leaking, who cares? We'll get it fixed. So that's the importance of a dream, I think. It's that day-to-day satisfaction, that day-to-day drive. It's not so much the end goal.
I think that kind of translates a little bit, and I could be wrong, into Alexi's view of music, because he sees it as you constantly have to reach the next achievement, the next competition, the next prize, and you write really kind of thoughtfully and insightfully about, in music as in many other parts of life, it's the whole process that you should be enjoying, not the destination.
Absolutely. Exactly. Yes. Alexei, you know, he's fighting against he really wants to enjoy the process, but he's under this, you know, his mom's thumb.
Mhm.
And you know, the whole time it's like, if she would just give him a little bit of space, he could blossom. But we're all driven by our own fears. So Mom was afraid as well.
That's true. Um, I know a lot of people don't realize, they often think that writing a novel, a fiction work, means that you don't have to do research, but sometimes there is research involved. I'm curious, Prudence kind of got her financial success as a jingle writer. Did you do any research into that? Is that a field that people kind of really make money at?
You know, who inspired that was Barry Manilow.
Oh,
Before Barry Manilow became a pop star, he wrote jingles, and he made
I
some
did
good
not
money,
know
and the
that.
jingles ran forever. So the Band-Aid commercial, that's Barry Manilow. Um,
Oh,
what was the other one? Is it State Farm and McDonald's? He made a pretty good living off of that. So I was inspired by that. You know, that's a rare case, I
mm,
think. But so I used it. I think someone extremely talented does have the ability to have a jingle that runs for a long time. That's very catchy. So
that's
that's where I
interesting.
got that from. Good
Hmm.
question. No one's asked
I
that.
I never knew that. It was the Stuck on Me music was Barry
Yeah,
Manilow.
that was Barry Manilow.
He really is multi-talented, I guess.
Yeah.
A lot of the book is set also in Scottsdale and the around surrounding areas, Phoenix and the different communities. Um, did you go and research specific sites like the Valley Ho? Do you have to, I mean, I guess you don't have to get permission, but do these places know that they're appearing in your book?
I don't know. The Valley Ho, I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember when I was writing for the paper that they were going to tear it down.
Mhm.
And then they, you know, it's what happened, what I wrote, there were committees and, you know, a big drive to save the building. And then they put I can't remember how much money, millions and millions of dollars in it. And um, so my husband and I, one day when I was writing the novel, I said, let's see if we can tour the Valley Ho. And you can tour these hotels.
Oh,
And so the concierge, Ace, her name was Ace, longtime Scottsdale resident, she said, sure. And here's some drink coupons at the bar when you guys finish, you know, you can have dinner. And she took us on an exquisite tour, all the history. I very much enjoyed it. And I told her, I said, I'm writing a novel. I mean, at the time, you know, it's like, who isn't? I said, I'm writing a novel and I want to put the Hotel Valley Ho in there because I appreciate the architecture and the history of it. And it's got to go in there. It's part of Scottsdale. So that's, yes. So I did tour the hotel and I highly recommend it. It's lovely.
gorgeous. Yeah. What about piano bars? Did Scottsdale have a reputation for piano bars?
No, I done a few stories. The Ocean Club had a pianist and there were a few of those, but there was, I did a story on this for the paper. There was a dueling piano bar off of Scottsdale Road and Bell, off of Scottsdale and Bell. I can't remember what it's called, but I showed up one night to do the story and it was so much fun. I don't know if you've ever been to a dueling piano bar.
No, I don't think I have.
It wasn't classical music, but it was the piano players were magnificent. All that music they have in their fingers, and it was, everybody was having fun. So somebody requests a song and one of the piano players plays it and gets the crowd going, and then the other guys got to do the same thing. And it was lovely. I think there's still one in Tempe, maybe, but yeah. So I used that for classical music.
That's great. The other thing that you kind of briefly allude to or mention in the book is one of the characters goes to a place where there's a pianist playing and he's taking requests and he does this nightly and it's like a career for him. And I never realized that people in that position, whether they're playing in bars or in hotel lobbies or that, they're almost as talented, if not more, than classically trained musicians.
Yeah, I think the difference there is, you know, classically trained, you know, I'm classically trained, but I cannot go out there and play 300 songs. I can't do that. I have to learn everything. I have to bring my sheet music along. That's no fun watching someone set up their sheet music in a bar. um, I also did a story on the Nordstrom piano player. So
Oh,
remember when Nordstrom's had
mhm.
a piano player?
Yeah.
And those guys, I think I interviewed 5 of them, and they were fascinating. They had, you would have never guessed, but they had like 300 to 500 songs memorized. And I don't know how they do it, if they do it by key or whatever, but everyone I interviewed said, yeah, not even college professors uh, of music, you know, some of them can't do that. So it's a special skill, it's special talent. So yeah, that's a big thing.
How did music help develop you as a writer?
Good question. I think it's when you start when you're having instruction and you're learning a new piece, it really sounds awful. And your instructor helps you engage in the process of learning it. You know, I think as you do it, something neurologically takes place. So your brain is physically changing as you learn a new song. And you have to, there's a lot of repetition, doing it over and over again, doing it every single day, studying, you know, what the composer wanted. So writing is like that. It's a lot of discipline. You really have to stick with it. Um, and you know, trust the process, that the first thing you put down on the page isn't, you know, golden yet. You got to rewrite, revise, develop the characters. So yeah, I would say discipline and trusting the process.
You also kind of illuminate how when you're a performer playing music, you're connecting with the composer. and their emotions. When you're a writer, you're connecting with the reader. So is that similar kind of skill transfer?
I think so. I think, you know, playing Rachmaninoff's 18th variation, it's a beautiful song, and he is such a great composer, and that song tends to tap into my emotions. Um, and when I was writing the novel, every morning I would take my notebook out to my piano and I would play a song that, you know, appeared in the book, but I would play it and I'd write down what I was feeling. Um, did it tap into a memory? Um, you know, just because I do feel like when you do play a song on the piano, you have to, you connect with the composer, you feel what they were feeling. And I studied like how they wrote it and what they were going after. You know, that takes a bit of research because they're not alive anymore.
Mhm.
So you can't ask them. No internet. Yeah, so that's absolutely. Mhm.
Two of the other things that you also do beautifully in the book is one, you illustrate the power of music can have in our lives, how just hearing a piece can take you to another time and a place.
Yes. You know, as the section I wrote about the Rachmaninoff piece where Stewart thinks of his childhood home, that makes me think of the yard I used to live when I was growing up, you know, back in the early 70s, and the geraniums all over the yard and the lilac tree. And yeah, I think their music is very powerful that way. It's almost like a scent, you know, um, when I still smell sunscreen, it immediately takes me back to childhood summers or fresh cut grass. I remember my father mowing the lawn on a Saturday morning, and it's summer, you know, and that stays with you forever. And I think music is like that as well. You hear a song and you remember, you know, a first date, or you know, just it's just so powerful when it taps into memories, because it digs up emotions that never leave you.
That's really interesting because in when they're creating perfumes, they talk about notes too. So that kind of is how scent and sound connect. The other thing that you do that it's amazing, but even still today, a lot of people are afraid of classical music. And I think you kind of show that it's not highbrow, it's not something that only people who go to the opera listen to, that it can be just as accessible as any other genre of music.
Yes, and I really feel strongly about that. I mean, I don't think the composers, if they were alive today, would like that. You know, they want everyone to enjoy their music. Um, and I think that's where the humor of the novel comes in. Um, is it so that there's not a stigma on it, that, you know, there's joy and it's funny, and it's for everybody. It's to draw people in. And you don't have to know about music to read this novel. I mean, I would love everybody to open themselves up to it. It's very light, you know, there's some deep meaning messages under there, but it's designed to make you laugh, and sometimes there's some little heart-rending parts of it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I would love it if people access the playlists and listen to some of the music.
Yeah, I think one of the humorous moments in the book is people can't believe that Alexi's show has become a hit, because
Yeah.
I mean, people are listening to classical music or watching it on television, and it's like, no, that can't be possible, but it is. Um, how did your journalism training transfer to novel writing? Did any of the skills you learned as a journalist help you as a novelist?
Yeah, I think having a deadline in my head, you know, we look at novel writing as this art, and the muse has got to come and visit us. And it's like, if you wait for that, you know, there's some days when I was writing for the paper that I absolutely did not feel like finishing this article. And you have to, you've got an editor waiting for it. You've given them, I can get it done by this day. And so I think, again, it's with the discipline. Writing the novel, it's, you know, I had it in my head. I want this chapter finished by the end of next week. And I had a calendar out and I went through how long it would take me. And there is that feeling of, oh my gosh, I want to finish this novel before something happens to me. And I wrote about that in the book, but yeah, you're just driven to do it because you've got this feeling like, what if I get hit by a bus tomorrow? I'll never have done it. So yeah, but it is setting up a deadline. And just knowing that, you know, punching out an article for the paper, you have less than 24 hours and you just are very efficient with your time. So I think that translates into novel writing as well. So I got it done probably pretty much in a year and a half.
Now that the book is published, what do you wish you know now that you didn't when you first started out writing the book?
That's a really good question. There's probably like 100 things.
That's okay. We've got time.
That, you know, maybe to relax a little bit, and not, you know, there were some days where, you know, I thought this book is going nowhere. Because there's so many viewpoints in that book. And it did get done, you know, so writing this next one, sometimes those feelings pop up too, like, where's this book going? But yes, it will go, just keep at it. It will go. So that would probably be keep at it, keep steady, and trust the process. I mean, I think a lot of us feel like, you know, there's a bit of imposter syndrome in there that I guess I'm not really a writer, you know, I'm pretending at doing this, but you're not. Anybody who sits down and puts hours and hours and hours into it, you know, you could say you're a writer. You're doing it. So yeah, I guess trusting the process.
I know the next question might be difficult, but authors hate being put in a box, but publishers, librarians, booksellers, readers all want to know, where do you fit? I mean, because there's certain genres of fiction, there's even nonfiction has its categories. Your book kind of is a quirky little thing. It doesn't fit neatly into one particular box. So has it been a challenge for you to get the word out to readers? Is your publisher saying, you know, why couldn't you throw in a romance or something like that?
I think that querying it and trying to get an agent was definitely, that was right on, you're right on the money there. I mean, where does this book fit? I don't know. It's somewhere between commercial fiction and
It's a
maybe,
lot of fun.
yeah, it's a little bit spread out. It's kind of my
Yeah.
reading. I read all sorts of books. And then once my agent got it, you know, she was like, well, we'll see. I mean, it went well, but yeah, how would I say to readers, when people do ask me what my book is about, when I'm signing books at Barnes and Noble, or you know, if I would run into a reader at Poison Pen, I would say it's a quirky, funny little book. It'll make you laugh. It's a journey. It's a story about everybody has a dream, and it's about all these different ways people go out their dream. I mean, you have the kid who drops out of college, Jesse O'Neill. You know, he finds his little dream in the end. So I think it's a book about dreams. Yeah, it's very hard to categorize the book.
It is, especially for people that want clear-cut things. I would say it's also a hopeful book. It's kind of a heartwarming book. It's a humorous book. So if you need something, sometimes the world just seems a bit much, this kind of restores your faith.
Yes, and the pandemic had started. And so I definitely thought we all need some hope. And yes, and you know, and one of the things about the pandemic is people were kind of reevaluating what they were doing with their lives. And, you know, I want to say, great, here, read this. It'll inspire you to go after your dream. I hope that's my hope for the book, that it inspires people to go after a dead dream. You know,
that's a great goal. You mentioned reading. What is your reading life like? What have you had on your summer reading list? Are there things you would like to share with other readers?
Absolutely. And you want to be careful asking me that question because I get really obnoxious about books. It's like,
Oh,
you
I
haven't
love.
read that. I will hound you until you read this book. I read 2 books at a time. I get up in the morning and I read something in, close to what I'm writing, something in fiction. And then at night around 5 o'clock, I'll relax either in the tub or by the pool and have a drink and read anything I want. Because I think you should be reading widely, not just what you're writing. So whether it's nonfiction or a romance novel or even a sci-fi or dystopian, I'm up for anything at 5 o'clock. What I'm reading now is All Night Pharmacy.
Not heard of it.
Yeah, it's I'm really enjoying it. It's very good. This is the poolside book. I did love Emma Cline's The Guest. I
Okay.
thought it was fantastic. She's such a great writer. Um, here's one that was poolside and might have got dropped in the pool a couple times because it's held together with a rubber band.
Oh,
Trust. I enjoyed this one. It was kind of a different sort of a novel. And then this is next on the list.
yeah. That
Have
has
you
been
read it?
no, it's been getting a lot of critical praise. Yeah, I think it's wonderful that you're kind of all over the map as a reader because that.
Yeah, this is a nonfiction one I just finished about
Oh,
quadruplets who all developed schizophrenia.
hmm.
So I was fascinated with that. I mean, when you're a writer, you're definitely fascinated with the human condition. So, most of what I read, I'm curious and I'm a voyeur. So,
You read.
and Human Copperhead. I'm reading that in the morning right
Oh,
now, and I absolutely love it. I think it's a fantastic. The voice is great. I just love it. Barbara Kingsolver.
yeah, it's been a favorite here at the Poison Pen. Any particular mystery writers that you tend to put on your list?
Yes. Wow. I do have I don't know. I wasn't ready for that one. Yes,
That's
I
all right.
love
It's the
them though.
bonus
I
question.
absolutely I read them like very
Popcorn.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Before we go, because I can't believe how quickly time has went, you mentioned a little bit that you're working on another book. Can you say anything about that, or would you prefer to keep it shrouded in mystery?
Well, I can say a little bit about it. It is a female protagonist, but not very self-aware, not Prudence, not eccentric, but very self-aware. It's high concept, it's yeah, I mean, I can't say too much until,
It's come to fruition.
yes, and hopefully, that here I am again. Hopefully that happens. Hopefully I have a book here. No, I write in it every day. I'm working on it every day, and I think it's going pretty well.
That's great. Can readers learn about you and your books through certain social media platforms? Do you have a website?
There is something on penguinrandomhouse.com, and I'm on Instagram. And I am also on Twitter, and I do post stuff on LinkedIn. So yeah, if readers, thank you for pointing that out. Yes, please, mostly Instagram.
And I know writing is an important part of your life, but is music still important?
Yep, I play every day. I practice every morning at 7:30 before anybody in my house gets on the phone or conference calls, all that. I practice, and then yeah, on the weekends I love to just relax and play whatever I want. It's like my 5 o'clock reading hour. You gotta make it fun and enjoyable.
That's true. That's wonderful. I can't believe our time has gone by so quickly. We're very fortunate at the Poison Pen to have author Michelle Hoffman with us today talking about her new book, The Second Ending. And if you'd like a copy, please do give us a call or go online. Thank you, Michelle, for writing such a wonderful book. And thank all of you for tuning into another virtual author chat.
It was a delight. Thank you, John.
Thank you.